Grit for the Day. Lived experience from influencers who overcome. With CEO and founder Thomas Lee Johnson. DerHovhannessian. How's it going, man?
Doing well, sir. How you been?
Hey, life is beautiful. You are in a studio. We are recording, just FYI, okay?
That is great.
Excellent, man. First of all, before I kick off the show, it's good to see you. What have you been up to?
Life has been good. You know, I staying busy with business and work. Been growing a business here over the last couple of years. Got acquired last year.
Who acquired you?
So GCOM. So it's been great. So Qlarion started, I don't know, 10 years ago by a couple folks, grew their Virginia presence, kind of their footprint in Virginia, and nice. GCOM acquired us back last year. It's been amazing. Like, I think, you know, I'm not envious, but when people say, oh, COVID came, we slowed down, like we've grown 200% a year over the last 3 years through COVID, just delivering outcomes for most public sector folks in Virginia. So it's been great. It's been exciting.
Alex, in today's conversation with Alex, we're going to hear how Alex, and I like to call him Alex, the Annihilator, he's going to tell us how he's been able to annihilate setbacks, obstacles, excuses, and how even in the moments of tragedy in his life, he has been able to annihilate anxiety, worry, and the most powerful setback and distraction of all, fear. Alex has a philosophy of replacing fine with fantastic. And he has replaced fine with fantastic in how he approaches setbacks, distractions, fear, opportunities, people. It is not just fine, it is fantastic. He will overcome, he will annihilate anything that stands in his way. Join us for this marvelous conversation, this life-changing conversation with this magnificent human being, Alex. Grit for the day. I am going to greet this gentleman and welcome him to our show. I knew him when we both worked at Capital One. God knows. How was that? 11 years ago, 12 years ago? And he is an entrepreneur par excellence and has been acquired, has gone on to do magnificent things. Alex has a track record of turning obstacles into stepping stones. He faces each day challenge and opportunity with a contagious optimism and spends time driving outcomes for everyone around him. And I can attest that is true. Alex, welcome to Grit for the Day.
TJ, thanks for having me, and kudos to you on your continued success and track record of delivering day in and day out. I look back at our years at Capital One in the trenches, growing and delivering on two of the CEOs like significant boulders, and doing that in a way that no one had ever done before across Capital One. So kudos to you on your continued success, and it's a pleasure to be here in your presence today as well.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much. I was just thinking when you were talking about that, I was like, that was Carl Werwath and what was it, the Crazy Train?
Yeah, that's right. It was the Crazy Train. That was the largest release train, I think, in history was assembled.
Yeah, it was a big one, man. It was
400, I think 400 plus people across the country delivering one mission, which was exciting. So
yeah. Well, you know, when we talk about, you know, Alex, you and your early career, and even if we wind the clock back to even early life. What was it about, your early life that made you think of titling your story "Breaking the Rules and Being Successful, Driving Prosperity Through the Pits of Life"?
Yeah, it's a great question, TJ. I think, if you look back, if I look back at my life, for those that watched My Big Fat Greek Wedding, the movie from a few years back, if you change Greek to Armenian, that was my life. So My Big Fat Armenian Wedding was how I grew up. So I grew up in a multi-generational household with my grandmother not speaking English, so having to speak Armenian in my early years to be able to communicate. A phenomenal childhood growing up in a small town in New Jersey, going to Armenian school, church, and just this community around us of aunts and uncles, and just an amazing amount of familial ecosystem. My father passed away unexpectedly when I was about 4.5. And I think I had to live or learn to grow up more quickly than others. And I think that if I look at individuals around me, those who have dealt with adversity, challenge, and change early in their lives, I think have a not better, but unique ability to continue doing that throughout their careers. And I think I was exposed to things early on in my life that many children probably weren't. I was driven to do things and to contribute in ways that probably many kids my age probably weren't asked to do. And I seriously wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, people look back and say, "Oh, I'm sorry about that." I said, but at the same time, I grew in ways that I never thought I could or would.
Right.
I was pushed to do things that I probably would never do in a traditional family.
Yeah.
And I grew up quickly and learned to run and walk, both literally and figuratively, on my own, with a great mother role model along the way.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm going to hold up a picture here. This is a picture of your pre-K graduation.
Yep.
What is the story behind this picture?
Yeah, so there's probably a lot behind this, but I was very fortunate to go to Tina Harris pre-K up in New Jersey, and it was just a house, right? It was a lady in the house, and she did this pre-K program. But I think even looking that far back in my past, milestones were critical for me, right? So what is the milestone? What is the next step? And how do you move forward in life? And I remember that graduation vividly. I mean, it was on a dirt backyard with some small chairs, but we all had graduation gowns, or you can see in the picture, caps and gowns.
Oh, how old are you here? 4,
sorry?
5?
Oh my gosh, 4, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
capping down at 4.
Capping down at 4 and moving to the next phase. And we had, things we had to say about what we learned and what we were going to go do in life. And, sadly, there weren't video cameras around as much in, the late 70s. But I mean, it was just, I still remember that today, about having a goal, setting a goal, and then not being happy with just that goal, but defining the goal moving forward as well, and what we want to do next beyond Tina Harris School. So
yes,
it's a fun picture. I had more hair back then as well. I think
that's where all the hair was.
Yeah, that's where it went. So, but no, a good time. But I think early in life, setting goals has always been something that's been ingrained in me from, both parents when they were alive, through my, early childhood in pre-K, including to really just set the goal, achieve it, and then define your next goal along the way as well.
If we think about what happens when a parent passes, especially early in life, I myself was raised in the foster system, in the DC public foster system. So I do know something about just kind of growing up without parents for a bit before I was adopted at 5. There's something that happens psychologically about connection.
Yep.
And when we think about grit, there has to be some level of emotional health, because you are persisting and persevering despite obstacles.
Yep.
What is it about you and your upbringing and your mentality that gave you the perseverance and the emotional health to be able to persist?
Yeah, that's a great question, TJ. I think Again, I go back to some of my role models. Again, my mother was a amazing individual in my life. Father passed away. She played multiple roles in my life, right? Had to be mother, father, friend, cheerleader, coach, advocate, corrector, you name it. I also look at my grandparents. We lived in, like I mentioned, we moved to Richmond. Her parents moved in with us. And again, a multi-generational household, the values that I was learning from my grandparents, my grandfather, my grandmother, are values that I would have never gotten. Not that negatively from my mom, but just a different generation of values, a different set of doctrines, a moral compass, and a drive to see where they came from, right? Being immigrants, having nothing in their pockets when they came to the country,
right?
And to watch what they did with themselves, to watch their perseverance, I think was just amazing. And to your point, I think to your emotional point, I think folks that have lost something, I only had a spare, right? So if I look at parents, right, I was still blessed and fortunate, right? I had a mom, right?
Right.
To your point, there are lots of people that have less than I do or had less than I do. But it was a constant reminder of how fragile life was, right? One change, one snap of your fingers and your life is very different. No matter what trajectory you're on, anything can change in a matter of a second. And I remember even that as a child saying, nothing's granted, nothing's guaranteed to you. And so you've got to make sure you create the destination you want along the way, because there's never a guarantee of anything in life. And so I think that was critical in my upbringing, critical in kind of my grab all the brass rings along the way mentality that I've maintained.
Right.
But also a bit, centering as a young child as well, to say, hey, nothing's guaranteed. You got to go after everything and give it 110% to make sure you get what you need.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, when you use the term values and you talked about your grandparents, what were your grandparents' names?
George and Osniv were my mom's parents. Yep.
George and Osniv.
Yep.
Now, obviously, they were your mom's parents, so you're the grandson. Did you have brothers and sisters?
I had one brother, yes. Yep.
Okay. Older or younger?
Older.
Okay. So you were the baby of the house. Did you get treated like the baby or?
Yeah, I think not to differentiate, I think you can have two children raised in the same family and they turn out very differently. My brother turned out good looking, fun. No, I'm joking. No, I think I was much more, focused on family growing up.
Yeah.
I think that also probably lent to either more attention or different attention from my grandparents. But yeah, my grandfather was, I'd say, played father role, best friend role, mentor. All joking aside, I think he taught me how to drive when I was 12 or 13. We'd go driving through the neighborhood. Sorry for the folks who used to live in that neighborhood. But yeah, there was an amazing relationship I had with my grandfather, going to Sunday school every Sunday with him, doing the social circuit with him as he visited some of his friends in the community that were life-changing. I think that were transformational in more ways than I can explain. The energy that he put into that relationship, I hope was mutual. The energy we both put in that relationship. But it was just an unbelievable relationship that has probably turned me into the person I am. There's no question about that.
Wow. So what business was George in?
Yeah, so he came to this country. His father started a restaurant business. He took over that restaurant business. He played music on the radio shows as they traveled around the country and here in Richmond. So he played violin and was very involved here in the community. I think he was one of the groundbreakers for the Armenian church here in Richmond. But just super involved in the community, super involved in his Sunday school and his church activities.
Yeah.
And maintained a restaurant here in downtown Richmond. Funny short story, actually. The same block that my office was in, literally pre-pandemic, was exactly where his restaurant stood on Main Street here in Richmond. I mean, literally within 5 yards of his restaurant was where we called our office home. You could not make that up, but a kind of a home. But it was amazing to watch. I mean, I think his relationships here in Richmond that he developed through that, whether it be through the people that walked through the doors, the people he served, were awesome to watch and learn from as well in terms of growing social capital and doing for the community what you should be doing.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny, Wall Street and other dimensions of our culture and enterprise use the term, ESG, environmental, social, and governance, and throw it around like it's something new when it's just, business leaders like your grandfather knew how to invest social capital, as you said, in the community because you serve the community that you're a part of. That's just what you do. It's both expected and demonstrated and done. Why do we have to I guess nowadays there's a reason, but nowadays you put a label on it and we think it's something fresh. And, your grandfather's just sitting there like, yeah, right. Did this for decades.
I think that's probably true of many things. If you look at, the terms we come up with now that are just reincarnations of things that our fathers, grandfathers, great-grandfathers have done. I think it's the shiny object of the day, things that are going to come back into popularity. But that's why I loved the multi-generational household. And people are like, that must have been challenging. I would have had it no other way. The things I learned are, very different generation by generation.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, the pendulum always swings, right? The pendulum is going to swing back and forth, and things that were very important 5, 10, 50 years ago, while may have fallen out of importance, are going to come back. I think COVID taught us that, right? COVID taught us the importance of family, the importance of health, the importance of living in the moment. Both of us are very fortunate to be sitting here today. There are many people that are listening to this podcast, including ourselves, that have lost someone very close, have had someone impacted by COVID, and have not had that second chance to say, oh gosh.
Right.
So I think COVID actually brought us back to reality in a lot of ways, in terms of, we are not indestructible people. We are not, fail safe. The ecosystem around us is not foolproof. And I think that probably was a great and sad reminder at the same time, as we navigated COVID, of how fragile we are, both as individuals and as community as well, and that we have to actually work together to all move forward.
Excellent. Well said. Well, you grew up around a restaurant. Was it Armenian? What was the cuisine?
Yeah, no, it was just American back in the day. No, it was not Armenian. He thought he'd do better with just serving the people and serving the community what they wanted. Gotcha.
So you grew up around an American restaurant. Did you ever serve in the restaurant?
No, he had retired when he moved in with us. He had kind of hung up his chef's cap prior to moving in with us. But it was still, he still cooked all the meals. I still learned from him daily about his restaurant and about life lessons along the way.
Nice. So you went to college. Yep. What got you into the line of work that you have blossomed in?
That's a great question. I think if I look back at my college years, fortunate to go to James Madison University, go Dukes, but I can't say enough about my college experience. Again, I continue to grab every brass ring I could possibly get into, try to get involved as much as possible. Same feeling, right? You give back to the community. You want to do those things. And I remember vividly, I think, a pivot point for me at JMU. It was my, freshman year, second semester, and something happened on campus. I think the physics department had been abolished or transitioned, and faculty were up in arms, and there was this whole hoopla. And my best friend at the time, Sean McRae, still my best friend, he and I were like, let's go ask the president what's going on. We hear all this rumbling, we hear all the people that are upset, but let's get it straight from the horse's mouth ourselves. So we literally walked after class one day to the president's office, up the stairs in Wilson Hall, opened this big wooden door. It was you can literally this big door, and never met the president before. His admin was like, yes, can I help you? And I was like, yep, we'd like to see Dr. Carrier. She's like, do you have an appointment? I'm like, absolutely not. I'm just here to understand more about this physics thing. She said, well, have a seat. She goes back. And I think we spent the next 2+ hours with Dr. Carrier one-on-one, him explaining where we were, where we needed to be as a university, some of the thoughts and background behind the decision. And I will say that was a pivot point both for me as an individual and for years to come. I think Dr. Carrier became a mentor, a friend, an advisor. And again, that didn't take any part of his time, right? He made a decision to answer the door of 2 folks that were underclassmen in a university that had no appointment, and spent 2 hours investing in us to explain, what the decision was and how he got there.
Wow.
Dr. Carrier continued to be a mentor beyond my college years, and was a phenomenal leader both at JMU, but also personally to me in my continued journey to become the best that I could be. Mm-hmm. But all that came from, again, my best friend and I just saying, hey, let's go ask the president what's going on and get more information on our own. So I think, again, if you talk about grit for the day, defining your destiny, defining what you need, and taking action. I think we all could sit around, and we see this, I think, more and more in politics.
Right.
Everything is doom and gloom. Everything is falling apart.
Yeah.
But unless we take an active role and do something about it, we're all going to say, oh, everything is horrible around us, and not engage. I think that engaging in that solution is step one into demonstrating you've got grit, demonstrating a movement forward, and hopefully making this place a better place than it was when we got here first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You and your best friend had temerity. You demonstrated bias for action and temerity. Yep. And that's impressive. That's not a typical 19-year-old, 20-year-old thing, so kudos to you for that.
Fair. Well, it could have ended poorly as well. It could have ended with he's got no time. And
right.
You know what? That's what many probably college presidents would have done at the time. But I think it was a huge investment, an investment that paid off, and a risk that also we took to walk up there. And worst case scenario, right? I mean, I also live by this one. Right? What's the worst thing that can happen? At the end of the day, all we would have said is, no, I can't meet with you, or hey, come back at a different time. So, taking calculated risk, I think, has also helped me get to where I am, and will help others get there as well.
That's great. After Capital One, you went to Accenture. Yep. What was that like? What was that transition like to go from financial services, your leadership position at Capital One?
Yep.
Very good job. I personally can say you are a phenomenal leader, Alex.
Well,
and I'm sure you could have stayed at Capital One and made it a successful career. What made you leave a successful perch as a director at Capital One?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll call myself a boomerang at Accenture. So I started my career at Accenture out of JMU.
Yeah.
I spent 11 years there, and will tell you there's some life-changing moments within Accenture for me, and I've been blessed with some amazing leaders and partners along the way. My experience at Accenture was, heads and shoulders above anything I could have expected. Being placed in front of CEOs 2 years out of school. Just amazing amount of empowerment, autonomy, leadership that was demonstrated by some great leaders around me. I left Accenture after 11 years because of my decision not to travel. I traveled a lot early in my career, and for that phase and time in my life, it was super exciting. Went to Capital One. There was an opening back at Accenture here in Richmond. So Richmond was home for me without travel. And so at the end of the day, while I love my Capital One experience, I also thrive on diversity of activity and kind of a new challenge every single day and something different. And that's probably why I stayed in the consulting field as long as I have. I think no 2 days are the same. Every 30 minutes, there's something different that I'm focused on and helping out with. And it's been amazing to be exposed to that. So I think the allure of that took me back to Accenture. Enjoyed my time at Accenture, kind of growing and working in Virginia and working through the Richmond area.
Right.
But then again, if and when travel ticks back up, my 10 toes test says, hey, probably not the perfect place for me.
Yeah.
And so,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
yeah.
What made travel lose its salience? Was it
Sure.
wife,
Yeah.
family, community?
Yep.
Like, what was it that you said, okay, look, enough?
Yeah. I think life, family, you name it. I think, and I was in a unique place at a time. So there was weeks that I was not in a different city every week, but a different city every day, right? So I'd start in New York on Monday or Tuesday, go out to Milwaukee. So there's many times where it wasn't like just travel for a week and unpack and stay somewhere. And at that, again, stage in my life, it was super exciting. But I think nothing negative. I will say that as I got to be, as I matured in my own life, married with children now, I think one challenge of traveling is, watching your kids grow up on a video camera, getting sent the video of your child's first steps. And I never, ever wanted that for myself, my wife, or my family. And so I've made a very probably hard-line decision. I mean, I think people talk about this, like, would you consider traveling? Would you consider 10%, 20%? In reality, there's no really 20% travel, because 20 becomes 40, 40 becomes 50. You're traveling the day before, you're traveling the next day. And so I've made a very conscious decision not to travel, not only for myself, but for my wife and my kids. And I have no regrets about that. I mean, I will say that my children will remember me being at every one of their events. There won't be a fly in on Saturday, try to make it normal on Saturday and Sunday and fly right back out, which a lot of my colleagues do every single day. Not saying that is not right. That's just not for me.
Right.
And it works for different people.
Right.
But for me, I wanted to be the best father, the best husband possible. Part of that probably is coming from losing my father early on. But really wanted to make sure that I didn't leave anything on the table for my family, was there for my kids and my wife, and made memories each and every day and tried to create a balanced life along the way.
Alex, why is it so important for your personal story to be present with your children and present with your wife? Why is that so important?
Yeah, I think, and I'm not a walking billboard of this. And I think if, my wife were sitting right next to me, I think that she's been a phenomenal counselor, advocate, voice, supporter, kind of nudger along the way. It's hard to draw a line between family and business, right? I mean, the more success you get in business, the more it feeds you and you feed it, and the more that's expected of you. I've joked I never wanted to be a C-level person, because at the C-level, more is expected of you than I'm probably willing to give.
Yeah.
I've worked 50, 60 hours a week over the last multiple years, growing businesses and growing people around me.
Right.
But at the same time, I want to make sure that I'm there for my family. You only live once. Your kids grow up once, and your legacy, right or wrong, not to be negative, but your legacy is not going to be in the company that you work at. Your legacy is going to be in the memories that you create in your children.
That's right.
And the legacy you leave behind is going to be a generation of stories about being there and being present for your kids, or being at the t-ball game or the gymnastics practice,
right?
Being at the school for their performance. Nothing negative about work, but I guarantee you, no matter how good I am 10 years from now, the people that work around me are not telling stories about Alex D. Maybe they are, but maybe they're fun stories and not stories that are going to be enduring and change lives. So it's a personal decision. Again, I'm not at all against or don't want to pass judgment on folks who travel every single day. That definitely works for people, and you probably climb the corporate ladder faster. But it's definitely a decision I made early, and I have no regrets about that, and won't change that going forward as well. That won't be that's a non-starter for me as I look forward as well.
Awesome. So, I'm going to say this. It's an assertion. You can tell me I'm wrong, but growing up in a multi-generational house, having lost your father at 4, having that marvelous example of George, your grandfather, who was present for you and invested in you, and you reap the rewards of that, you want to replicate that positive pattern in the children that you and your wife have now. And that's why that's a priority over climbing faster, ascending higher. Is that
TJ? That's why. I mean, I think that's why you continue to be successful in what you do. I think you nailed it on the head, right? So it's not just it's pay it forward, right? It's take what you've gotten or received and pay it forward in an exponential factor and make sure that it continues along the way. And so you are spot on. I think I was fortunate to have that experience and would love to replicate that for my kids at an even greater level, at a step level above, right? So take that, add more to it, so that continues along the way. So you're spot on.
Oh man, that's awesome. Listen, I'm a father of young children. I think my children are younger than yours. So like after this is over, I'm just gonna call you. We're just gonna talk fatherhood, okay?
I gotta tell you, and I tell Abby and Harper, my two amazing kids, every single day, like I learn more from them than they learn from me. Like I learn from them every single day. And as fathers, we actually need to remember that. Like we are learning along the way. There's not a book. There's lots of books, but there's not a one size fits all to parenting.
Right.
We need to pivot along the way, and we probably need to approach each kid differently, as we all know.
Yeah.
And be ready to say, you know what, that didn't work, and we got to try something different. Because I think, we get very set in our ways within our business world about, okay, this is how you go from A to B to C. And as you and I both know, parenting is not always that easy, and it's been an amazing journey. Again, I'm very blessed with an amazing wife that is. Teaches me and is a partner beyond belief. But yeah, I learn more from my wife and children every single day. And if I can continue learning, that's going to make it better for me and better for them as well.
Awesome. You have known some adversity, both personal health as well as the health of your family. Talk about just some of the concerns around health that you've experienced and your family's experienced, and how that impacted you and growing businesses.
Yeah. I think if not to go too far back, right? So I watched my grandmother, who lived with us at the time, pass away from lung cancer. Fast forward, I watched my father pass away first, my grandmother, fast forward to 2018. And we call this like the pit, and we use this term, my wife and I, a lot. But there are many things that happened in 2018 that any one of them, I think, are, make or break moments in a person's life or in a couple's lives. And, for whatever reason, we were handed a significant amount of challenge in 2018. Well, I think, I had a few medical procedures that, had me not lifting more than 5 pounds for 30 to 40 days. Pretty hard to do with young kids. We moved 3 different times in 2018. So we decided to put our house on the market, moved into a town home. But a few days before the house hit the market, kitchen flooded when our housekeeper was there cleaning the kitchen.
Oh my!
You can't make this up. I mean, we got into a house, which was great. Very fortunate in the house we were able to get into. 2 days after the night we moved in, the second night we moved in, my sister-in-law called saying my brother was going to the emergency room. And in the days following, he lost his battle with cancer. For 10 years. Fast forward a month later, our youngest was just off, and then spent 30 plus days in the pediatric ICU here at VCU.
Oh my goodness.
Had 3 neurosurgeries. The last, they kind of removed his skull to make room for his brain to grow. Both our cars got totaled or hit at different times, but we're in the same shop together. And so again, I say these things to say that, everyone says, we're all in the same boat. We may be in the same storm. Things may be happening to us, but all of our boats are different. And so I think what that has taught me along the way, especially in the business world, is everyone's dealing with something beyond business.
Right.
During COVID, I think we all witnessed this, right? Everyone had their own challenges. And I think it created some additional empathy for me. It created some more, awareness of how fragile things were. We talked about that earlier, right? How fragile life is. It's a reinforcement about, things beyond your control, things that are going to happen to all of us, regardless of what we do or prepare for. And it's how we react to that, right? And I will tell you, we got through that. My wife, again, was an amazing supporter, leader. She is much more wired for multiple adversities, I think, than myself. It was just a great partnership, challenging along the way. But to your question on business, I think this is a reminder that as you go through business, I talk about the E quotient a lot, right? I think the E skills are missing a lot in our technology and our IT focus. What are the emotional skills that we bring to the table? I think those are differentiators beyond belief, right? Being able to connect with someone, understanding their story beyond work, understanding what makes them tick, understanding their challenges are things we don't invest in typically. I think that those who invest in that will see exponential difference. And again, getting through that pit, I think reinforced in me, things within your control, things outside of your control, asking for help, something I don't do very well. I mean, I've never been one to ask for help. I've always been one to say, I've got this and we can do it.
Right.
But making sure you ask for help along the way, because there are people that are ready, willing, and able to help. And then drawing the line for yourself, right? And we've talked about this a little bit. No one's going to draw the line for you, right? So you got to know where to draw the line between work and life, and when to say when, and when to draw the line for yourself and your family. So making sure you know what that line is. That line can change in an instant, and making sure you can adjust that line accordingly. And you surround yourself in an ecosystem that allows that, right? So I'm very fortunate at Qlarion and GCOM to have some amazing leaders that support a balance of life and work, support flexibility, support investment in your personal goals and your personal challenges. And so I can't say enough about coming out of it greater than I started. We're in a super better place now, and learning along the way. So I think that's a very long answer to your question, but I could talk for days or hours about the pit in 2018, but we are better for it. I think it was a challenge, not one that any of us wanted to take on.
Right.
Any one of those things, but collectively a significant challenge for us, but one that I think we've grown from and continue to grow from. And I think that has continued to shape the way we treat each day and each other as well.
Alex, we use the term adversity, and usually that is a single event. 2018 for you was a tsunami of adversity. And so, the tools that you described, were the relational ecosystem with your wife and your kids and your extended family and friends, and your awareness that there has to be a boundary between your family and your emotional health and what you do every day, for business. And you had to make a demarcation just to preserve the piece of yourself that was under enduring that adversity. My goodness. That takes, not just self-awareness, but like awareness of, the health of your wife and your extended family. And then it sounds like you were a champion to protect them as well. Like I hear protector as I hear you describe, just making a line, drawing demarcation, so that they are able to endure as well.
Yeah, humbly, I think I appreciate that. I think my wife was a larger protector of the ecosystem. I tried to maintain balance with life and work and growing a business and focus on family. She was in the hospital every single day with our youngest throughout everything. But yeah, again, I think it's, if we learn anything from that, just keep moving, right? It's very easy to get stuck. It's very, in work or in life, right? You talk about grit.
Right.
I think a lot of us are stuck in analysis paralysis. What's the perfect decision? What do we have to exactly do? I think the thing we learned more often, especially through 2018, was just keep moving, right? Just keep moving in the direction we want to move. It may not be at the pace we want to move at. It may not be the exact destination we want to be, but don't allow yourself or ourselves to get stuck in a mundane, rote kind of cycle. And we all do it, right? We all get stuck in this, okay, well, this is life and this is what we're doing. But keep moving in the direction you want to move in. And at least you're closer to your destination. You may not be to your destination, but you're at least closer than you were the day before.
Yeah.
And I give my wife a lot of props for helping us all move in that direction, maintain that focus, and allow for us to weather that storm.
Wow. That's amazing. Alex, this has been a phenomenal conversation. Thank you for being willing to be so open about the pit. And I'm sure everyone's going to want to know, how's your little one doing now?
Fantastic. He is flourishing. And again, for those that have chronically ill children, we left the hospital with a healthy child, right? The person on our left and the person on our right weren't that lucky, right? So we got to keep everything in perspective. I will, do we have a guarantee going forward? Absolutely not, but none of us do. But I mean, it's a new normal for us. I mean, we've got to monitor a few things, and life will be a bit different. And there'll be red flags and yellow flags we'll have to keep an eye out for. But for right now, he is absolutely amazing, flourishing, loving life, doing junior ninja stuff, and just being a great 7-year-old.
Your son is taking ninjutsu.
It's a great. He had his birthday party with his friends this weekend at the ninja course, and
amazing.
It's been awesome. So we are very fortunate. The team at VCU, life changing. I mean, for those in Richmond or around, the Children's Hospital here in Richmond at VCU is just unbelievable. But just flourishing. I mean, I can't say enough. I can't say enough about him. Again, a huge thanks to GCOM and Qlarion for their support along the way. You talk about delivering. I think another thing I think has been interesting is, if you bring this back to work, it's, I'm in a very unique place right now that all we do is deliver outcomes, right? So if a client comes to me and says, "Hey, I want to do this," saying no is okay. Like unless there's an outcome, like show me the outcome. Let's talk about the outcome it delivers. Like I think it's also made me think more around like what are the outcomes I'm delivering every single day, and what am I doing to move the needle every single day?
Yeah.
And that's been exciting both in my personal life and at work through GCOM to really make sure that we are delivering each and every single day for our clients, delivering an outcome, moving the needle, and making it better for our clients, our customers, and the constituents along the way as well.
Marvelous.
Thank you for joining us on Grit for the Day podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Lee, TJ Johnson. It has been a delight to spend time with you today. Grit for the Day. Lived experience from influencers who overcome with CEO and founder Thomas Lee Johnson.